For those who really wanted to experience driving an Evo 3 in Gran Turismo, well, the last time we could do that was in Gran Turismo 6, so it really has been quite some time. About a decade, in fact, since you could last drive this car, unless of course you just boot up the game again and then you can drive it anytime. But back then, of course, it wasn't even a premium. It didn't have the detailed interior. It was what we used to call like the Gran Turismo 4 models, where it looked much lower resolution than many of the other cars. And these initial shape Lancers, the 1, 2 and 3, all being based on that same shaped car, before of course the Evo 4 made the redesign to what is much more kind of iconically an Evo look, and then the 5 and 6 were kind of similar, and then the 7 changed it up again. But these have always appealed to me. I've always liked the first 3 generations because in particular they feel smaller. It feels like this little playful, compact, like bulldog of a car which you can just throw through corners. It feels every bit as light as it is. In fact, it undercuts the Subaru in this update by 200 kilos. And the Subaru isn't overly heavy, but this is even lighter at 1260. The horsepower is pretty good at 264. In fact, for a relatively early generation of Evo, those power numbers aren't that different to what some of the later Evos would have anyway, especially if you factor in the Japanese gentleman's agreement of 276 horses, which it seems no car ever actually had, but they all kind of are listed as that in Gran Turismo for no apparent reason. This one has a very reasonable point level, as you'd expect, 474 points, and to me the only two strange things about this car in GT7 are, one, the price, which is very hefty, for really no apparent reason. It's 100,000 credits, which is pretty expensive. There are literally some cars in the Legendary dealership that are similar prices to that for a car which is much older, much more collectible than an Evo. Not to say that it's not worth buying, and 100 grand isn't that difficult to get, but to me it just strikes me as a bit of a weird price. The strangest thing though, to me, and maybe this is just a me thing, but there seems to be something about the model that they've used. Maybe it's the fact that the car is so smooth and rounded and soft, but the graphics, in particular in photo mode, don't quite look up to par. And even if you look at the thumbnail of this video, or look at the car in the race, maybe it's me, but it kind of looks a bit soft. Like the car doesn't look quite as high definition as you'd expect. In terms of performance though, it's absolutely fantastic. Of course the handling is great, as anyone, myself included, who has owned a real-life Evo or a Subaru can attest to. They are phenomenal through corners. That's kind of what they're known for. That's the point, being of course a rally-bred vehicle. I haven't driven an Evo 3, but even mine from a few years later in 2002, mine was an Evo 7, is probably the fastest car through corners, at least, that I've ever owned. It's truly like nothing else to pilot a vehicle like that at those kind of speeds and feel like the car just can take whatever you throw at it, basically, within reason. And in the game they do a great job of transferring that feeling, because this really does feel so fun to drive, but also so competitive as well. Even if you don't do anything to it, it's super fun, super playful, extremely compact, with that smaller body shape that it has compared to the later Evos, especially once you get up to like the 8, 9, and especially the 10. And this just has that kind of purity, you know, of the old school Evo. Much like the original shape Subarus, it's where it all began. And even though it's, no pun intended, an evolution of the idea, it still stays true to that first shape, and it will always feel special because of that. Now, in terms of tuning up, of course with any Evo they have fantastic potential, especially if you focus more on the cornering even more so than the straight line performance, because Evos don't tend to be as strong. In fact, they're almost never as strong as your Supras and Skylines and RX-7s in a straight line in Gran Turismo, but through corners they really do take some beating. They are phenomenal cars, and this is no exception. Sure, it may be older, it may be less powerful to begin with, but even the weight advantage that it already has over some newer cars, in fact many newer cars these days, it means that it actually is still shockingly competitive. And again, I can attest to that in real life. The one that I had was more powerful than this, although a similar region. I had an Evo 7 GTA, which has 268 horses to this car's 264, and weighs more than this one does. But even then, you could genuinely feel that this car, despite being literally 20 years old, in the case of mine, could still rival cars, even brand new performance cars, today. For sure, these are still forces to be reckoned with. And to me, the thing about the Evo that feels so great, both in a game and in real life, is that although technically the car is doing some of the work for you, it actually doesn't feel like it is. It feels much more mechanical in its approach than something like a GTR, for example, does. And I love that. It has more of a simplicity to its approach. An Evo feels like there is absolutely nothing there that doesn't need to be, and it's totally focused on performance. Part of the reason why I got rid of mine was because of that. Yes, it's fantastic when you push it hard, but only when you push it hard. Under normal driving conditions, they're kind of boring to drive in my opinion, which is why I didn't keep mine, but in the game that's never an issue. You're not cruising around in an Evo in Gran Turismo, you're flooring it all the time, and that is when it puts in its best work. To me, this is a very easy, simple review because I honestly have nothing but praise for the car. Sure, people can always say, oh, I would have preferred an Evo 9 or whatever, and of course if the leaked list continues to be true, then we can expect more Evos to come. I believe, at least off the top of my head, the Evo 8 and 9 are due to be dropping in the game at some point. So if you do want more Evos, stay tuned, because we are due to be getting them. For now though, this is a very welcome addition. To me it's a perfect choice of car to update to the full HD glory, and even in terms of visual upgrades or replicating like the Gran Turismo 2 featured rally version of the car, which may or may not be something that will feature on the channel in future, so stick around for that. But there's just so much that you can do with an Evo. You can make it into a drag car if you want to. You could certainly do a rally build, of course you could do a circuit build, and because the power isn't that crazy, you can really maximise the levels of grip and control and just fantastic personality that they have to really leverage that for its point level. So under 500 points, it's a weapon. Under 475, it's a monster. This thing is already less than 475 and it feels fantastic without even doing anything to it. Once you do begin to modify the car, it just goes from strength to strength. Overall though, that's it for my thoughts on the Evo 3, as now seen in Gran Turismo 7 in that full HD glory. Of course, give me your thoughts down below if you love the car, maybe something about it disappointed you. Of course, stick around tomorrow, wherein I will already be talking about the last of the three, the 2004 Subaru, of course. Spoiler alert, another fantastic car, another rally-bred vehicle as well, of course. And until then, I'll see you next time. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.